welcome to the start of the never-ending spoiler season. Modern Horizons 2 is starting to come out tomorrow, but today we've got some Dungeons and Dragons things. And I'm afraid I don't know who this character is. But let's have a look. It's Drizzt do Urden? I guess. I don't really know. But it's a 5-mana 3/3 with double strike. And it's an elf ranger. Ranger, I believe, used to be an old creature type, but we don't use it anymore. So, cool to see it back. When Drizzt do Urden enters the battlefield, create a Gwynhydra, a legendary 4/1 green cat creature token with trample. I'm sorry if I'm not saying these correctly. Whenever a creature dies, if it had power greater than Drizzt's power, put a number of 1/1 counters on Drizzt equal to the difference. Really, really cool. And it's a green-white design that, yes, we've seen things like this before, where make a token and all that sort of gubbins. But the whole stealing the power from other creatures, that's a really novel take on green-white, and I really, really like it. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing. I'm making one of these for every single legendary creature ever printed, which is becoming a challenge as Wizards of the Coast are just pouring more and more of them into my brain. So if you like this, please subscribe and watch some more. Without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5 for this brand new commander. In at number 5, we have Multani, Yavamaya's avatar. So, our commander cares about really large things. We want to get a lot of 1/1 counters on it because, well, having a massive double striker is really, really powerful. Multani, who is a 6-mana 0/0, we're going to get 0 counters, wonderful, is a reach trampler, and it gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land card in your graveyard. Now, in green-white, obviously we're going to be running a lot of land ramp, lots of spells that get us lands onto the battlefield, and we can make use of that with this really beefy boy. He has a little jellyfish in his hand as well, which is nice. Then, pay 2, return 2 lands you control to the owner's hand, return Multani from your graveyard to your hand. Really good bit of recursion if we do end up sacrificing him, or it might be a slight sacrifice theme in this deck. We can get him back for simply returning 2 lands, which isn't that big of a cost in the long run. To go along with this, a couple of other big beefy boys. Growth for the Guardian is a land that creates a big token. Taps for a colorless, and you can pay 5 and tap it, and tap 2 untap creature you control. Sacrifice it. Put an 8/8 green and white elemental creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield. So, a land that makes us an 8/8 is a really nice include. It's essentially free value. It doesn't take up a spell slot in our deck, so it's a nice little include. Then we have Multani, the previous edition. Marrow Sorcerer, 6 mana for a star. Its power and toughness are each equal to the total number of cards in all players' hands. In EDH, that's going to be pretty large, so if we end up sacrificing this, our commander's going to get a ton of counters. Then, Multani cannot be the target of spells or abilities, so he has Shroud. So, our opponents really can't mess with it, but thanks to the, sacrifices templating, it doesn't target, so we can still sacrifice Multani to get all those delicious counters. Or he might just die generally, and then our commander will get lots of counters. Then we've got Realm Seekers, which is a upgraded version of Multani, the old version. 6 mana for a 0/0, enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. Pay 3, remove a 1/1 counter from Realm Seekers, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. This is really nice. Yes, it doesn't fluctuate the way that Multani does. Say you draw 20 cards. The old Multani will get 20 power and toughness bigger. Realm Seekers is fixed, but the ability to search for land in green-white, really, really powerful. You can go and get Grover the Guardians. Ooh, nice. In at number 4, we have some elves, because our commander is indeed an elf. So, why don't we use that to our advantage? Eladamri, Lord of Leaves, is a double green 2/2. All elves gain Forest Walk, which means if defending player controls any forests, those creatures are unblockable. So, we're going to have a massive double striking elf thing that is now unblockable if our opponents control a forest, which is incredibly likely as green is by far the best colour in Magic. Also, elves cannot be the target of spells or abilities, so our commander can't even be removed by spot removal, a board wipe or bust. Really, really powerful. Eladamri, 2 mana. I think he might be on the reserve list, so he's probably quite expensive, but we have a couple of cheaper replacements. Elvish Champion, 3 mana for a 2/2. Other elf creatures get +1/+1 and have Forest Walk. So again, our commander can just chip in for tons of damage. Then, if we're going down the elf route, Immaculate Magistrate is a really, really cool card in this deck. 4 mana for a 2/2 Elf Shaman. Tap, put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. So, this is really good with our commander, because we can just target our commander. But we could potentially target another one of our creatures, then sacrifice it for massive value, maybe greater good, draw a ton of cards. And because that creature's dying, our commander will then get all of those counters that it was missing out on. So, excellent use for this card. Then, Elvish Archdruid, excellent mana ramp card. 3 mana for a 2/2 Elf Druid. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Tap, add green for each elf you control, which is pretty decent. Then, Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, is a 3 mana 2/3 Elf Scout. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its control may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. So, we want to play massive creatures, and this is going to be drawing us cards for that. Excellent. And then the gravy on top, green and tap, add X mana in any combination of colours. Could be green or white, maybe red. Where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So absolutely astonishing ramp. Play this on turn 3 because you already have a creature that has power 2. You tap her for, you're going to have 5 mana. You can play your commander on turn 4. Or potentially earlier if you've got some early mana ramp dudes. Marwyn the Nurturer, another cool card which grows and grows with 1/1 counters. 3 mana for a 1/1. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Marwyn the Nurturer. Tap to add an amount of green equal to Marwyn's power. So, grows with all of our elf shenanigans, and then if it dies, we dump all the counters onto our commander. Finally, Azuri, Renegade Leader, 3 mana for a 2/2. Pay a green, regenerate another target elf. Excellent. Our commander is going to be, very hot for removal because it's a massive threat. So, being able to regenerate from any destroy effects is nice. Pay 3, elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. Really good. Trample is excellent with our commander as double strike allows us to smash in for tons of damage, and hopefully it'll be massive. And this can just win you the game even if you just have a bunch of regular elves knocking about. Which brings me on to my number 3 pick. And in number 3, there's Cauldron of Souls. 5 mana for an artifact. Tap, choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. So, if we have a sacrifice outlet on the field, our commander creates a 4/1 and is, by standard definition, a 3/3. So, someone removes our commander, we Cauldron of Souls it back, we get another 4/1, which then, if we have a sacrifice outlet, we can sacrifice that to get the persist counter, the -1/-1 counter, off it by it giving itself a +1/+1 counter, or a 2. This is really, really cool and can keep our commander around. And thanks to the fact that the token is legendary, if we just have we don't even need a sack outlet if we just have the token around. Because the token will come in, kill itself, or kill the previous version of itself, and that will trigger our commander's ability and give him the counters, which is really, really nice. To go along with Cauldron of Soul, Birthing Pod is a wonderful sacrifice outlet. With our commander, we can sacrifice for something that's 6 CMC, so if you see over there, we've got a couple of really nice 6 CMC dudes, and Multani and all of that crowd of massive creatures are also 6 CMC. Birthing Pod, 4 mana for an artifact, pay 2, or you can play Phyrexian, which means you can pay a green or 2 life, sacrifice a creature. Search our library for a creature card with converted mana cost, equal to 1 plus sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. The great thing about our commander is that token is 0 CMC, so we can get an Allosaurus Shepherd, or just a Nice little mana ramp dude with it. Excellent use for Birthing Pod. Sun Titan is a 6 mana 6/6 with Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. No, it will not get back our commander, but most elves are really, really tiny. So getting back all those elves is a nice bit of value. And if we're going to be running a lot of sacrifice outlets, we could put Sapphire Extorter into the deck, which is a 2 mana 2/2 that you can sacrifice to essentially reanimate something when it next dies. And with a sacrifice outlet, that's infinite sacrifices with Sun Titan. As Sun Titan will bring back Sapphi, Sapphi will come on, sacrifice itself to Sun Titan to give Sun Titan the regenerating thing. We then sacrifice the Sun Titan, it brings back Sapphi, so on and so forth. Nice little combination for you there. Then we've got Twilight Shepherd, another little persist creature here. Not that little, it's quite large. 6 mana for a 5/5 with flying and vigilance. When it is the battlefield, return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So just on an empty board, if we don't have any way of, bringing our commander back with persist, this comes in, brings it back to our owner's hand. And then if somebody wipes the board, we're going to rebuy all of our elves, which is a nice bit of value. Which brings me on to my number 2 pick. And in at number 2, we have Tempting Lycid. Lycid? Lycid? I don't know what it is. 3 mana for a 2/2. Decent stats, I'd play it in limited. Pay a green and tap it. It loses this ability and becomes a creature enchantment that reads, all creatures able to block enchanted creature do so. Instead of a creature. Oh yeah, so it becomes an enchantment, it's no longer a creature. Move Tempting Lycid onto target creature. You may pay green to end this effect. So, why do we want this sort of effect? Well, if our commander's massive and has double strike, well, if everything needs to block it, we can just wipe the board using only our commander. And the cool thing about Tempting Lycid is if our creature's going to die, we can just pay a green before the combat damage step. So everything's blocked. We go to the combat damage step, pay a green, it just sort of scuttles off and it just sits there as a tapped Lycid. Really, really awesome. And with our commander, it can just wipe the entire field of one of our opponents, which is pretty good. To go along with this, Lure is the classic example of this. 3 mana for an enchant creature aura. All creatures able to block enchanted creature do so. So exactly the same effect, but it's not quite as cool. So that's why it's relegated to this spot. But because of First Strike, what if we gave our commander Death Touch? Well, that means that with First Strike damage, before any of our opponent's creatures deal damage, we just need to assign 1 damage to every single one of them, and then everything just dies and falls over. Wasteland Viper is a 1 green, 1/2 with Death Touch. But we can Blood Rush it for a green and discard it from your hand. Target attacking creature gets +1/+2 against Death Touch until end of turn. So if our opponent, if we've got a lure effect on our commander and then we do this, we'll wipe the board and keep our commander around. Absolutely lovely. Idric Umbra. Oh, and then, because all of our opponent's creatures die, we're going to get a ton of counters. Indric Umbra is a 6 mana aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +4/+4, has First Strike, and all creatures able to block it do so. Totem Armor. If enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura. So excellent board wiping shorts with the Totem Armor, and the +4/+4 is pretty big game, and we can just absolutely annihilate somebody's board. Really, really powerful. To go along with this, why don't we just wipe everyone's board, and then if they have a bunch of creatures that are big, our commander will grow massive, and then we can just slam in for loads of damage. Slash the Ranks is a 5 mana sorcery. Destroy all creatures and planeswalkers, except for commanders. Well, luckily, our commander is our commander, so our commander is going to keep commanding. Command. Fell the Mighty is another great example of this. 5 mana for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. So when our commander is just a lowly 3/3, we target our commander and everything that's 4 power or greater is going to die. So everything big dies and our commander becomes big. It just sort of absorbs all of the counters onto himself. Cataclysmic Gearhulk is a 5 mana 4/5 with Vigilance. Does a very similar impression of this. Enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among non-land permanents they control. Then sacrifices the rest. So we're going to choose our commander, and hopefully our opponents cry uncontrollably. And thanks to the fact that this is an artifact, this can be our artifact if we don't have anything else good on the field. Which brings me in to number 1. And at number 1, we've got Phyrexian Dreadnought. A 1 mana 12/12 with trample. And this is the downside. When it comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures with total power of 12 or more. Or bury Phyrexian Dreadnought. So you sacrifice it. Well, with our commander on the field, this is 1 mana, give our commander +9/+9 in terms of counters. Because it just comes in, kills itself, and all of those counters go onto our commander. And then we can just swing in for 24 damage. Absolutely phenomenal. You can just win out of nowhere with this single card. And there's another card, which I almost gave this next card the number 1 spot, but Phyrexian Dreadnought is just infinitely better. It's Force of Savagery. 3 mana for an 8/0 with trample. 8/0. So for 3 mana, we give our commander +5/+5. Pretty damn good. And the artwork's fantastic. And this card is just so unique. It's just something you never really see. And I love it to pieces. Then we're going to move on from that slightly. Groundbreaker, triple green for a 6/1 with trample and haste. At the end of your turn, sacrifice Groundbreaker. This isn't quite as good as the other ones, as you know, it only gives +3/+3, and it's at the end of turn. The others, you just give the buff straight away. This is a bit of a delayed payoff, but it's a cool card that you could put into your deck. Then Woodfall Primus. This is a creature that you want to sacrifice, and it's a 6/6, so it's going to buff our commander a bit. 8 mana for a 6/6 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-creature permanent. And then it has persist, so it comes back in, and you can do it all over again. Really nice card that you can use, and it can really cripple your opponents. But I've been talking about sacrificing. Well, let's have a look at some good sacrifice effects, shall we? Mercy Killing is a wonderful card. 3 mana, instant. Target creature controller sacrifices it. Then puts X 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature tokens into play, where X is that creature's power. So if we choose one of our massive creatures, yes, it's dead, but our commander will become massive and we get an absolute wealth of 1/1 tokens. And this is a really cool card to use against our opponents. It can be terrible, but it can also be awesome. Say they've got an Ulamog, you know, indestructible 11/11 or 10/10 or however big it is. We can make our opponents sacrifice it, which gets around the indestructible, but they will have a ton of little elf tokens. And if we're going down the elf route, this on one of our massive dudes just gives you a little army, well, a massive army of elves to swing in with. Really awesome instant there. Greater good, 4 mana for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to sacrifice creature's power, then discard 3 cards. Discarding 3 cards. Who cares when you've drawn 26 off sacrificing Multani? Really awesome card, and it's just incredibly powerful. Then the final card I've got for you, Altar of Bone, a white and a green for a sorcery. Sacrifice a creature to look through your library for a creature card. Put that card into your hand after showing it to all of the players. So it's a Murderous Rider. Very nice. And then reshuffle your library afterwards. Excellent effect. A tutor for any creature in your deck. And it's just a green and a white. Very out of colour for Selesnya. Like, it does feel very weird that a tutor for a creature is green and white and you're sacrificing a creature. It should be maybe green-black. But it's a wonderful card for you to use. And those are my top 5 cards for this brand new commander. He's really quite cool. Double strike is always nice to see. And he's just pretty awesome, to be fair. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please do subscribe. I'm making tons more content like this. And I'll see you soon. Bye.